What's up, everybody? This is the Sports League podcast. Back for another week. I'm your host, Alex Leak. We got Amanda on as always. Good to have you, Amanda.
Always good to be here.
And we got Hue Jackson, three-time head coach. Hugh, great to have you back on. This is what, your fourth or fifth time on. It's always a pleasure.
Hey, Alex, it's always a pleasure being with you. And now that I've met Amanda, it's a pleasure to be on the same podcast with her as well.
Yeah, absolutely. And we know that you're doing some interviews and stuff, so we're excited to see, your next coaching gig, and we'll be rooting for you regardless of where that is. For those of you that don't know, he was a former three-time head coach with the Raiders, Browns, and Grambling State. He's also a former Bengals offensive coordinator and wide receivers coach, as well as the Ravens quarterback coach. Speaking of the Raiders, you're a former head coach of the Raiders, and they go off this week. They break the franchise record with 63 points on the LA Chargers. Pretty impressive stuff to break the franchise record. And are you a fan of what Antonio Pierce is doing as the interim coach?
Oh, absolutely. He's brought the swagger back.
Yeah.
That's what it's about, being the Raiders coach or being in the Raiders organization. It's just about just win, baby. But when you get a chance to just win like they did, they scored 63 points.
Incredible.
Now, do you remember what that last record was that they broke? How many points was that?
I'm not sure. I have to look that up real quick.
I think it's 59, if I'm
Yeah.
not mistaken. I
I
think
was
it
just
was
paying
the
attention to the all-time record. I was waiting for another 10 points. I was like 73 do it. Like we're so close. I feel like they pulled off the gas a little bit there at the end. I
You're
thought they could have
right.
had it.
Oh yeah, no, they could have smashed a lot of things if they wanted to. They played well, but that 59 points, if I'm not mistaken, was against the Denver Broncos in Denver.
Okay.
By an offense that was led by none other than Hue Jackson.
Really?
Oh, okay.
That's
Absolutely.
awesome.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. I won't forget that. That was an incredible night. Darren McFadden had an unbelievable game. 4 touchdowns, unbelievable touchdowns rushing, catching the ball. He did it all that night. He was just phenomenal.
He was a monster. I was a big fan of
Oof.
McFadden out of
He was he
Arkansas.
was he was special.
Um, do you think that they had an opportunity, right, to keep Rich Bisaccia long term and they didn't do it? I'm rooting. I hope they keep Antonio Pierce, and he seems to have the players supporting him and rooting to try and keep him long term. You think that would be the right move instead of going out trying to make a splash hire?
I do. I don't think it's about the splash higher. I think it's about what fits for the Raiders. I think it's what fits for Mark. I think Mark will do, he'll make the decision when it's all said and done. But I think you have a coach there right now that you get to evaluate every day. Not somebody who's outside the building. You get to see what he brings to the table every day. And you ask yourself, if I surround him with the other things that he needs, can we elevate him to be one of the best coaches in football? And so I think that's a question that he's asking himself. And I'm sure he'll figure it out as they get to the end of this thing.
Yeah, good answer on that. Go ahead, Amanda.
So speaking of games this weekend, Saturday we saw the Bengals beat Minnesota in overtime. How have you been feeling about, quarterback Jake Browning? I mean, I've been jokingly calling him Jake Brady over the past couple of weeks, which Alex gives me shit for. But I mean, Cincinnati's third straight win. They're now 8-6, squarely in the playoff hunt. Are you impressed with what Zach Taylor is doing there? How are you feeling about Browning?
Oh, absolutely. I think anytime you lose a quarterback of Joe Burrow's talent, because he's one of the best in the league by far. And then, it took Browning a couple weeks to get his footing underneath him. And then I think the coach has done a really good job of doing what he can do and then putting the offense in position to win. And so at the end of the day, I've been really impressed with him over the last couple of weeks because he's been playing winning football. He gives them a chance to win. Their defense is playing well. They're starting to run the football. This is getting cold now, so you got to be able to run the ball pretty well. And that's
Yeah.
what they're doing. I hear Chase might be out this week So that doesn't help him. But at the same time, they have enough play. They have enough weapons, I should say. And I think their coach is good enough that he'll do everything he can to put him in position to win.
Yeah,
Yeah,
it's
I think
impressive. Yeah.
I was just gonna say Joe Mixon has really kind of like pulled it together for them and kind of completed that offense, I think. They just seem
No
really,
doubt.
really efficient right now.
Hmm.
How about Gardner Minshew? I've been on the podcast saying that Minshew mania was dead, was a Jacksonville thing, and that was over with. But Anthony Richardson goes down, and you figure the Colts are out of it, much like we figure the Bengals are with Joe Burrow. And this year we keep saying is the year of the backup quarterback, and Gardner Minshew has this team now tied for first place. I mean, what can't this team do? And if they get Jonathan Taylor back to go with Zach Moss, who knows? But this Colts team is staying competitive, huh?
No, they are. They're doing a great job, and kudos to the first year head coach who's, did a good job of Minshew. He's the guy. He's making
Yeah,
plays and getting them victories. I just think that whole conference, that division, I should say, those coaches have done a really good job. When you look at the
yeah,
Texans and what they're doing and them winning last week with their backup quarterback, Chase
yeah,
Keenum playing because CJ Stroud couldn't play. So, like you said, this is the year of the backup quarterback. Whoever can get those guys to play well and whoever has prepared their team to have the right backup quarterback on their team, those teams are still playing well.
yeah. It's impressive for sure.
So speaking of head coaches and people who are, new to a team, we've seen Dan Campbell come into Detroit and, make a lot of changes. And he seems to be, finally pulling the team together. I mean, they blew out the Broncos Saturday night. And it seemed like a pretty solid upset with how the Broncos have been playing because, the Broncos seemed like they were on a hot streak. They were on a roll. They were ready to start, making a postseason run. And we saw after the game, or during the sidelines, Sean Payton getting into it with Russell Wilson, just kind of yelling at him. Do you think there's some animosity there? Do we think there's some issues behind the scenes?
I don't know if there are, but I do know those things happen, right? I mean, there all these alpha personalities and something doesn't go right and one word leads to another. And I'm sure, they've done everything they can to quiet it and move on from it. It's not something you like to see happen on TV, on national TV, where everybody can evaluate it and hopefully figure out what was said. But please, I hope nobody blow it out of proportion. That needs to happen sometime. We make
Yeah,
it more than what it is. Well, you can't embarrass the quarterback. Well, the quarterback can't embarrass the coach, and it might have been something that he didn't do right. It might have been something that they wish they would have done better. And maybe he was encouraging him a different way. You just never know what that is. And I think Sean handled it the right way. That's between him and Russell, you know.
Yeah.
But we all get to guess what it was. But at the same time, those things do happen week in and week out.
Yes, as far as we know, it was just a really aggressive pep talk.
Right.
Um,
Absolutely. You just said it.
did you ever have a situation in coaching where you needed to say some harsh words to one of your star
Oh,
players and have to pull them
yes.
aside?
Absolutely. Think about it. No player week in and week out can do everything perfectly.
Mhm.
And so they're going to make mistakes just like coaches make mistakes. And so you just can't keep repeating the mistakes. So when it happens and you see maybe a player's not in it as much or whatever that is, you have to correct it on the spot because everybody's depending on this player to do his 111, right? In order for the team to win. So the coaches who don't confront those things normally don't make it very long. But the coaches that do, because the players know. They
Yeah,
know if a guy's pulling his weight or not. And if you don't call them on it, then the players know that they can't depend on you. So you better be one that will step out in front and call a player on something he needs to do better, because that is to me the signature of a really good coach, as I said earlier, because the other players are watching.
yeah, accountability, and it looks better, I think, coming from a coach than two players going back and forth, right?
Absolutely, no
Yeah.
doubt, because now you have dissension amongst the team.
Hmm.
But when it's the coach, normally it's because, and it's normally coming from a good place,
Yeah.
right? Even though it might look a certain way, it's coming from a good place, because some players you do have to be a little harsh to motivate them or to get them out of something. Some people you might not have to be as harsh with because there's magic words or sayings or whatever that is you can use. And boy, this player locks in and he goes and plays. But you better figure out what makes him tick because you need him to play well. That's for sure.
Um, yeah, absolutely. I agree with that 100%. This is my favorite story in the NFL right now. It is what Joe Flacco is doing with the Browns. 38-year-old Joe Flacco up off the couch, gets that call, gets an opportunity, gets to play with a number one ranked defense, and is winning and has a chance to be playing some meaningful football late in December, go even make the playoffs. And we've all seen what Joe Flacco is capable of in the playoffs. You saw it firsthand. You were his quarterback coach when he was a rookie with the Ravens, and he became the first quarterback to win 2 playoff games that year.
Yes, I'm not surprised by anything Joe's doing. You just said something I think so key, though. The formula for most players, you figure it out, right? I mean, it's a good defense. You let a guy play, manage the game, whatever all that is, right? But the formula for Joe has always been have a good defensive football team. Joe
Mm-hmm.
can throw the football with anybody. He
Yeah.
always could. I mean, he was a beautiful passer.
Mm-hmm.
But, every now and then he might turn one over here or there. But if you have a good defense that will keep you in the game, he's going to find a way to make a play because he has such a talented arm. And so I think we've seen that show itself. And that's why I think Cleveland has a chance. They have a real chance because he's been in these wars before. He
Yeah.
understands what's needed. He knows in the fourth quarter is when Joe really plays extremely well. And that's what he
Yeah.
did last week. And so if you can play good defense, give him a chance to make those throws, those receivers get open. I think they have a good scheme for him. He's going to make a lot of plays for him.
Yeah, and the Browns should, see themselves kind of lucky here to be able to bring in a former Super Bowl MVP, a guy that went 11 touchdowns, no picks in the
Mm-hmm.
playoffs.
Mm-hmm.
He's older now, but that ability is still there, and with the right team around him, you never know. It'll be fun to keep an eye on this Browns team the rest of the year.
No, you're right. But I think it's showing itself. It is
Yeah,
legitimately showing itself right now because he's thrown for over 300 yards in almost every game.
yeah.
And so the formula has been because they don't have Nick Chubb, right?
Mm-hmm.
So they're running the ball okay, but boy, they're throwing it extremely well. And in the National Football League, it's really the other way. Yeah, and they need to run it. They're in Cleveland, it's cold. They got to do those things, but to score enough points, you got to
Mm-hmm.
be able to, in the National Football League, to throw the ball consistently to score enough points to win games.
Yeah,
So, I mean,
absolutely.
looking at your coaching tree this year, we've got a couple people who have come out of, your system and who are doing well. I mean, you were the head coach of Cleveland when they drafted Baker Mayfield number 1 overall in 2018. Since then, he's had a bit of a rough ride in the NFL, bounced around a bit. I've always been a fan of his, though. As much as it sucked to watch Green Bay lose again, I was so stoked about Baker's performance. I mean, I'm thoroughly enjoying his redemption arc in Tampa Bay now. I mean, he put on a show in Green Bay, the first visiting quarterback to ever have a perfect passer rating at Lambeau Field. That's an amazing stat. I mean, Green Bay is one of the original NFL teams, and to be the first person to do that, like, that's insane. Like, how do you feel about Baker and, his ability to overcome adversity so far?
Amanda, a lot of people don't get it. I've always been fond of his talent because Baker's extremely talented, more so than what people think, and you said some people have written him off because of whatever, but that's not, people don't understand. Sometimes you got to be in the right situation
Yeah.
to have the right fit and have the right support and have the right people around you in order to show your talent. And I think that's what we're seeing now. They're letting him kind of play his game. They're not, it's not 3 tight ends. It's not all these big people in the game. I hate to say it, but everybody has a thing that they do extremely well. His thing is throwing the football. Contrary to what people believe, it's throwing the football. There's a reason why he was the first overall pick of the draft. And so he's showing that now, and everybody's like, they're so surprised. I'm not, because I knew in the right situation, that's what he would do. And he's showing that he's as capable of most of these quarterbacks in the National Football League if you give them the right ingredients that they need in order to cook.
Yeah, I mean, I've been a fan of his, and I've defended him for people, and I was getting real pissed off at some of the narratives, and I feel like he was
Hmm.
scapegoated a little bit for some issues in some other places, but we won't get into that. But right now, the Bucks are currently leading the NFC South in the division. I mean, if they finish strong, they could host a playoff game. Do you
Pretty
think
cool.
Baker would translate some of his success into the postseason and win a playoff game?
Well, I think he can. He's done it before. You know, he's
Yeah.
done it at Cleveland where people think you can't do it. So, no question in my mind. I just hope they continue to grow with him, build more, things around him, for what he needs, and then watch what happens. I think he's on the cusp of really taking off the way everybody think he can, but I think you got to keep growing in the system for him.
It's interesting, Hugh, when you look at the draft and quarterbacks in the draft and like uh, Zach Wilson going number 2 overall. A lot of people thought Sam Darnold should have gone above Baker Mayfield. You look at it this year, Bryce Young goes ahead of C.J. Stroud. And the success of the Texans are having with rookie head coach DeMeco Ryans and C.J. Stroud, and right there in the hunt in the AFC South to possibly make the playoffs, even win the division. Do you think that Carolina is maybe second guessing taking Bryce Young over CJ Stroud? I know it's early, but man, CJ Stroud looks like he has it. And maybe it's just a bad situation for Bryce Young. It's hard to say.
Alex, I think the narratives out there right now is that Bryce Young is not CJ Stroud. And
Mm-hmm.
CJ Stroud is not Bryce Young, however you want to look at it. I just think it's
Yeah.
too early to tell. I
Yeah.
think you have to first make sure he has the right surroundings. Who's
Yeah.
the receivers? Batman got to have Robin. So you got to have great receivers. I mean, you look at Baker Mayfield right now. Evans is playing his tell-off for him. And so you got to have a good receiver. You got to have great protection. You got to have a scheme that enhances this player's ability. And
Yeah.
people don't. I think there's a lot of quarterbacks that come in the National Football League that are very heralded coming out of college that sometimes don't make it, right? And people wonder why. This guy was so talented in college. Well, college football in the National Football League is totally different.
Yeah.
And the guys that come in and play early, I love it because those guys are special to me. The guy that can come in the first year
Yeah.
and handle it and play at a high level, because there's so many things that this player got to learn how to do, and to manage and to go through and to work through. And if you have the right teaching, you have the right person that can raise you up through it, you have a chance. If you don't, there's a good chance within 2 to 3 years, you'll be bouncing from team to team to team, and then hopefully you'll get somewhere where people understand it and then they can put you in the right situation. But a lot of these players can never get those losses off their head, because it's been tough because the media, the
Yeah.
media kills you. I mean,
Yeah.
it drags you down. And so those players struggle. They really do.
They love to build you up, but they love to tear them down too.
Yeah, you just said it, and it's part
Yeah.
of it. And we get it. They're being paid a lot of money. They
Yeah.
got unbelievable opportunity, and everybody is expecting them to do it right now. Some guys are not ready to do it until year 2. Some guys, it might be year 3, but it's a process. But normally you can see the talent. I think Bryce Young's extremely talented. I just think they got to make sure they have the right people around him. You drafted him number 1 for a reason, right?
Yeah.
People were saying the same thing about Baker Mayfield. Look at him now,
Yeah.
So let's let it run its course and let's see where it is a couple years from now.
That coaching hire this offseason for the Panthers, it's going to be a magnifying glass on it. You have to get that coaching hire right. And if you're
You
going to get
have
Bryce
to.
Young, yeah.
You have to, and it's got to be an offensive coach.
Yeah.
It's hard for it to be a defensive coach when that's his specialty and his job is to defend the quarterback.
Yeah.
How is he going to help this quarterback navigate all these things that he's dealing with? Because if I'm Bryce Young right now, I'm feeling kind of like I'm a failure, right? We're not winning a lot of games, even though we've won some. We're not winning a lot of games. I'm not playing as what people think the first overall draft pick should be playing. So I got to deal with all that. I got to deal with the mental piece of it for me personally.
Confidence. Yeah.
And then, I'm getting hit, the
Yeah.
physical part of it, I'm getting hit. So somebody's got to rebuild him back up to get him to be what he should be. And I think somebody will.
Yeah.
Yeah,
That's
I
right.
think he's got a lot of space for growth still, and I expect to see more out of him down the stretch. And you've talked a bit today about, the mental voices in players' heads and how some of them need, aggressive pep talks and stuff. We saw last week, the whole NFL world witnessed Patrick Mahomes kind of lose it after that offensive offsides call on Kadarius Toney that called back a really cool play. Since then, he's apologized for his actions. He's owned up to it. He said it's his first fine he's ever had to pay. So no hate there. I'm not going to get into why he was upset or if he was right or wrong to be upset. But Andy Reid had said he'd never seen that called before. And someone went back and looked through his entire coaching history, 25,000 offensive plays, never been called that penalty once. But tracking it over the past few years, so there was 2 of those calls this weekend that I saw. There might have been more, but so far this year, it's been called at least 15 times. That offensive offsides, last year it was 3 times, the year before that 0. Why do you think it's being called more? Do you think it's benefiting the game?
I'm not going to say it's benefiting the game because the game is points. It's entertainment, right? And so
I'm just trying to figure out why.
Right, the play that happened. Well, but at the same time, it's a rule, right?
Yeah.
That's why it's a rule. You can't be offsides, and he clearly lined up incorrectly, and that's day one. I don't care how you cut it, slice it, whatever. And I heard the other talk that came out that they're not, that Coach Bieniemy brought a whole different accountability, right? And so you knew something was going to fall off in Kansas City.
Yeah.
When you lose a guy like that who's been there through the Super Bowls and all that. And when people say that, people think that's a knock against Andy Reid. No, that's not a knock against Andy Reid. It's not a knock against any other coach. Eric Bieniemy had a special trait that helped him be better than what they are right now. And so that's missing. And so to me, what they got to do is find somebody who can do that. Hold those guys accountable from that standpoint, because that's what's really missing, because there's too many drops. There's been too many penalties, and that normally doesn't happen in Kansas City. So when we look at it, we go, that's not the same offense, right? That's not the same flavor that they play with, the swagger they play with, and the looseness that they play with. It seems like things are getting a little tighter. Well, you got to fix that. That's what coaching is all about. You got to fix those things. And so they got to figure it out.
I found it kind of funny because, we've seen the Chiefs in prime time and big playoff games, and in my opinion, get the benefit of the doubt on a lot of calls. Since Mahomes has been there, and I'm interested what your take is on Mahomes, Josh Allen, these quarterbacks that can run, right? And they get out there and they get along the sideline. And it used to be get out of bounds so that you don't get destroyed, right? A la how Bledsoe got hit when he got hurt. Now you can't touch a quarterback over there near the sideline. Otherwise, a flag is coming out, especially a star quarterback. And instead of going out of bounds, you see them tippy-toeing and going forward for another 5-10 yards. And especially when it's going for a first down, the defender has to come in and hit them. And then you're seeing the flag thrown. They got to do something about that, right? I don't like those calls.
No doubt, Alex, but it's a double-edged sword, right? So
yeah,
if you get these guys hurt, which the league has a lot of them hurt this year, well, it's not as good a football, right? People don't tune in as much. If the guy doesn't make a first down, he doesn't get an opportunity to keep throwing the football, and they get that too. These quarterbacks, they know how to play it through, and I get what the league's trying to do. You got to protect them as much as you can. You have so many of these guys out this year, but they do need to adjust it, because there's a way of getting what we all want, right? To me, the defensive player shouldn't not be able to tackle quarterback. He's running, right?
Yeah.
And we should protect those guys because they are very special, and they only have so many hits in their bodies, and they can get hurt, and you don't have the guy again. So they need to go back and address it, go back and look at it, and make sure it's fair on both sides.
Yeah, I mean, we've seen so many rule changes over the past few years that are about protecting the quarterback and keeping the quarterback safe. But I've never seen this many starting quarterbacks injured in a season.
Yeah,
so
it's crazy.
Right.
That the rules are increasing, but so are the injuries. So
no doubt. I just think, since COVID, I think you can track it back, Amanda. Since COVID, I think the teams practice differently. From everything I've heard, the practice is different. How they prepare is different. You have more injuries. I just think, period. because you don't hit as much. You don't grind like that as much. So the body's a little bit different. The bodies, I should say. So I just think I hear in practice you can't do what I know we used to do. We used to have legitimate practice. The only way you get good at playing football is play football. Everybody
Yeah.
says that all the time, but does everybody do that? And I
Yeah.
don't think so anymore.
Yeah,
It's an excellent point on that.
instead of scrapping against each other. That makes sense.
Hey,
Yeah.
you build up like toughness taking those hits all the time at practice, and
hmm
nowadays the
hmm
quarterbacks don't get touched; they get put in a bubble until game time.
Yes.
Yeah,
Yes. And they do get so, you look at Josh Allen, he's so big. He's a big
yeah,
man,
yeah,
and I think he works at it. And I think it's important to him. You watch how Patrick Mahomes trains, right? And so he doesn't have an off day. If he's still doing what he did, he's doing what he does on Monday. And he goes and punishes his body to a whole different degree. So I just think that piece of it, you watch those guys who really have a training regimen that they believe in, those guys get it done. It's the other
hmm,
guys that, boy, they don't work at it like that. They start to get injured and get hurt. And a lot of little soft tissue injuries that turn into big injuries.
yeah, 100%. Um, the Buffalo Bills. Speaking of Josh Allen, go blow out the Cowboys, the Red Hot Cowboys. Dak Prescott's an MVP candidate. 31-10, a statement win. I'm very impressed with how improved that offense has looked since Joe Brady took over as
Mm-hmm.
offensive coordinator. And to me, what has really opened up that offense is something that's been missing in Buffalo ever since they've been a contender with Josh Allen, and that's the running game.
Mm-hmm.
And James Cook went off
Wow.
on Sunday.
He did. He's special. He reminds me a lot
Yeah,
of his brother. I'm
yeah,
surprised that Dalvin's not doing as much for the Jets. But I
yeah,
mean, it
me too.
happens. I get it, but at the same time, we're watching Buffalo run the football. That was phenomenal what they did the
Yeah,
other day, and again, Dallas is supposed to be one of the quote unquote better defenses, and they ran the ball like you wouldn't believe. So it's really interesting how teams do things. So that happened against Dallas. So whoever they play this week is going to scratch where it itch. Whoever's playing
mm-hmm.
Dallas this week going to try to run the football
Ooh,
because it's
Miami Dolphins,
they're going to try
Devon Achane, Raheem
and
Mostert.
and they're used to running the football, and so
Yeah,
Mostert is what he got 20 something touchdowns, and so
yeah,
it's going to be a heck of a battle because again they show the ball can be run on that team,
yeah,
and so you better believe Miami's going to load up and run the football.
And we're
yeah.
both big Achan fans. I mean, that 1-2 punch in Miami can be mean sometimes. So I'm excited
They're
to see that.
fast.
So far.
They're so freaking fast. Both of those runners are they're dynamic. They can catch, they're fast. You can move them all over the place. I just love what they do on offense. I love what San Francisco does. They both come out of that same style,
Mhm.
but they have a way of running the football like no other team in the National Football League.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Miami went out and just picked the fastest guys they could find in the offseason and pulled them all
Yeah.
together.
Dexter.
It's
Yeah,
That's
dirty,
right.
man. It is mean when they're clicking and going. Like that offense is
Oh, yeah.
mean. But I mean, you just brought up the Niners. So last time we had you on, we talked about how quarterback friendly Kyle Shanahan is. I mean, right now the Niners are on 6-game win streak. They're beating teams on average 20 points per game. Let's, we've thrown some names out there. Let's talk MVP. Do you think Brock Purdy's the shoe-in for MVP? Are we looking at Tyreek? Like who's your pick right now where the season stands?
The guy that's been so obviously what Tyreek Hill has done has just been phenomenal. I mean, if he can eclipse 2,000 yards, I think
yeah,
that sets a whole new standard at the position.
Yeah.
But the guy you didn't mention is McCaffrey.
yeah,
What he's doing, running and catching is just phenomenal to me. And everybody knows he's going to get the football. Everybody
Yeah.
knows he's going to catch the football, and they have not been able to stop him. So I think they got two potential candidates on their team with the quarterback and McCaffrey, just because the guy is just dynamic with the ball. I mean, when he touches it, you better make sure you know where he is because he could score, whether it's running or catching. And then the quarterback has just been deadly. And I know everybody makes a big deal about him being the last pick. And I get that. There's no question. I mean, he's playing like he should have been the first overall pick. But again, to me, that gives kudos to the coach. Coach
yeah,
Shanahan, as I said the last time we talked, He's one of the best in the business. There's no question he is. And then the guy that's down in Miami falls right off his tree. And I think he's one of the best in the business. So they have a way of doing things that puts the quarterback and their offensive players in position to make a lot of plays. And that's what it's all about.
Reminds me of the greatest show on turf, the Rams, with
Mm-hmm.
Marshall Falk, this pass catching ability, home run threat, along with Christian McCaffrey, Torrey Holt, Isaac Bruce, Deebo Samuel, George Kittle.
Yes.
I call him the greatest show on grass.
No, you're right, Alex. I mean, when you think of them, there's not much that they can't do,
Yeah,
from an offensive standpoint. And they have the offensive line to do it with. So they're playing great football.
yeah.
I would love to have McCaffrey in the MVP race. I would actually love a non-quarterback to win this year. I mean, I think such a handful of elite players who are not in the quarterback position this year. I mean, it's almost hard to pick a quarterback this year because half of them aren't even playing right now.
Yeah.
But you have to go back to 2012 with Adrian Peterson to the last time it was a non-QB. So I would love to have, Tyreek, Christian McCaffrey, one of these non-QB positions win.
Well, there's a chance it can happen this year. That's for sure.
Yeah, I'm with her. I'm rooting for that. Stop giving it to quarterbacks all the time. Give it to
That's right.
Yeah. Well, I mean, speaking of MVP though, Lamar Jackson, I mean, he's been playing really, really well lately.
No,
We've
he
seen him
has.
kind of, become more patient this year. He's selecting his run routes better because in the past, like he would just run whenever there was a second, he would just take off, and he'd taken some hard hits. This season, he seems a bit more patient, a bit less stressed out, a little bit less anxiety in the pocket. He seems to kind of take his time and select his plays a bit better. Do you think this is the year Lamar makes a playoff run? Do you think, maybe Super Bowl for him?
I think there's a chance. Again, their defense is strong too. And I think like you said, he's not running as much. I think this is year 5 or 6 for him. 5.
Yeah.
You only got so many of these hits in your body, and I think he's figured that out now. And he runs enough, just on call runs. So he's hanging in there a little bit more. They have a new coordinator. I think they have new receivers. So he's making some plays that way, and I think that's really, really good. I hate that he lost Andrews because that was a real big safety net for him. But he's playing like you said. He doesn't play like with the anxiety that he played with before. I think he really looks like he's growing in the game now. And so he made a couple of outstanding plays this past week that gave their team a chance to really, get way ahead. And so if he can continue to do what he does, and people don't understand these quarterbacks, they got to keep getting better through the season, because the playoff season is like a whole new season. You got to get ready for that, because playoff football is way different than regular season football.
I've been pleasantly surprised by how well he and Isaiah Likely have replaced his connection with Mark Andrews. They've looked so good out there together.
See, I've been surprised. I've been impressed because remember was it a year ago or 2 years ago that Likely came on the scene and was making some huge plays for him, even when Andrews was out before.
Yeah.
And so this is not surprising. I mean, Likely has always been a really good player. So they got 2 tight ends that I think can really help their football team. And that's what Likely's showing. He belongs. He's a good player.
I'm a Bears fan, and I'm critical of my GM for letting Roquan Smith go to the Ravens. Like, Bears as middle linebackers. That's what we're built on. And Roquan was, my favorite player almost in the entire league. And he goes to Baltimore, and you see their stats go first across the board since he's gone there. He's special. And as a GM, how do you let him leave?
It's hard to let those guys who are, generational talents go. Why you do that, I don't know. I mean, sometimes you have a guy that can stay there and play at a position for 10 years. And they're going to be one of the best at their position. You want to hold on to those guys as long as you can. But at the same time, they made the choice. They better go find one, because you just said it. That's what Chicago's known for. Great defense.
Yeah.
Middle linebackers.
Yeah.
I mean, it almost seems greedy though. What did they need him for? Like, you guys have enough talent. Just stop. Give somebody else a chance. That's just selfish,
she's feeling
man.
that,
Come
Alex,
on.
because of her Packers. You know where that's coming from.
Yeah, exactly. She doesn't want to. Hugh, how important do you think it is home field for the Ravens? If Lamar's going to go on a deep playoff run to the conference championship, get to a Super Bowl, this might be the first year that Mahomes and the Chiefs have to play outside of Arrowhead. And I think that home field in Baltimore could play a big role in it.
Oh, there's no doubt. Home field
Yeah.
advantage in the playoff is huge,
Yeah.
unless you have a great defense. When
Mm-hmm.
you have those great defensive teams and you can pack a great defense and go play on the road, you got a chance to win because
Mm-hmm.
they can stop teams from scoring. But
Yeah.
there's no question if you can play at home, that gives Baltimore an edge, because like you said, Kansas City will have to go there and the road goes through Baltimore. That could be very, very challenging for someone.
Yeah. 100%.
I pointed out to Alex today, I don't know if home field's that vital for Baltimore because, I mean, of their 3 losses, 2 of them were at home this year. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
only 1 loss on the road this season. That's impressive for, an away series. That's great.
Right. Amanda, you're right. And some teams' focus is not as good at home. You got to know
Mm-hmm.
who your team is too. So some teams don't play as well at homes and more distractions. There's more people
Families in
coming.
town.
There you go. All those things you have to deal with. And so, and people don't even think about that. Coaches are having to navigate that as well too. You would think, oh, at that level, you don't have to do it. Oh, yeah, you do, because it'd be an issue with tickets and this family members coming in town and they want to come over to the hotel and board meeting's going to be at this time. And you gotta negotiate these things with your team because at the end of the day, everybody wants the extra money. Everybody wants the playoff wins so you can stack that money and get to the Super Bowl and win that game. So, coaches are involved in those things as well.
No, it's got to be so tough being a head coach in the NFL or anywhere, and all the people don't think about all the little details that
Mm-hmm.
add up. And for me, I'm looking at the Philadelphia Eagles, who were red hot, looking to be the 1 seed, and now they're on a 3-game losing streak, and you start talking about those little details where, for whatever reason, now you're not playing your best football and how important it is to be playing your best football late December, January. They need to get it fixed as soon as possible.
No, Alex, they do. And Amanda, I think what they're experiencing, contrary to what people want to really give it, why it's happening, they lost both coordinators.
Yeah.
People don't want to really talk about that. It's like
Mm-hmm.
they're supposed to be the same team they were a year ago. No, they're not.
Mm-hmm.
They're not going to be.
Yeah.
Contrary to what anybody thinks. Well, Jalen Hurts, he had 17 interceptions now. He had 8 all of last year.
Yeah.
Where does that come from?
Yeah.
And so, and that's nothing when I say that, that's not putting down who the new coordinator is. But sometimes when the message or the play or the leadership or the install comes from a different angle,
Mm-hmm.
it doesn't hit the same. It might take another year before these coordinators really take off, with that particular team and really understand what was being done, but right now they're in the midst of it. How do you get it fixed? Well, they try to fix it on defense by changing the play caller. Or
Yeah.
are you going to now do that on offense as well? You got to figure this out, like you said, but how do you figure it out? Because the people that can only fix it are people that are there right now. Can't go get the guy from the Colts and bring him back.
Yeah.
He's not coming back.
Okay,
You
can we
can.
have him back? We miss him. Thanks. And I think it absolutely takes time to build that chemistry back up, to build that relationship.
Yes.
I was there were so many posts on the internet this week about Jalen Hurts and like what he's done in the past 3 games, like only 600 yards of offense, no passing touchdowns, etc. And I was like, listen, the past 2 weeks were its own thing, but like this week, the man had the flu. Do you get out of bed when you have the flu? Like the man went on the field and kept his team competitive and tried. Like I would love to
Almost
see you
won.
do
Yeah.
anything when you have the flu. Like, and then some guy in the comments like, well, Jordan put up 34 points when he had the flu, and I was like, are we comparing them? Like,
Right. Well,
are
people
you like
forget.
who
It's
ever compared them? Like,
right.
he's his own person.
It's been a whole
Oh my
different
God.
year for Jalen though this year. He's hurt his
Yeah.
knee. He had a leg issue earlier in the year. He fought through that. I mean, he's played almost in every game, right? He will not take himself out, and maybe to the detriment of the team a little bit, but he has played his tail off. He's given them a chance to win every game. I just think, Amanda, goes back to what you said. It just takes a little bit more time than people are willing sometimes to give because they were in the Super Bowl. They're a really good football team, Boy, why can't we have it look the same this year? Well, it's not going to look the same. And I think if people are more realistic on what it really is, everything will be okay. Not saying it's okay. And I'll be the first to tell you, you'd hate to see 8 interceptions or 17. You got to figure that out. But at the same time, why are we not celebrating what they're doing? They're 10 wins, right? Or 9 wins, whatever they have. They got a chance to still finish strong, get to the playoff, make a heck of a run at this thing if they can get this quarterback healthy.
There's a post going around right now about perspective, and it's a train, right? And you've got a Detroit Lions fan on one side and an Eagles fan on the other, and it says 10-3. And obviously the Eagles, it's, desolation, and they're depressed about 10-3. And the Lions are stoked, man. It's sunshine and rainbows. Like, I mean, come on, 10-3 is nothing to scoff at, guys. Like, you're doing great for all the changes that have happened to that team's foundation and infrastructure. Like, cut them a little bit of slack.
Well, and
But people won't.
and you talk about that 10 wins and being right there. As a former head coach, the Eagles, they go and change defensive play caller in week 15 of all, so late in the season. Isn't that a risky move and kind of maybe a little bit of a panicky move?
Alex, it is. It backfired. Let's just be honest. I mean, you made that change because they were going to play better. It was going to look better. When they needed the defense the most there at the end, when Seattle hadn't really completed many balls the whole night, they marched down the field throwing the football.
Yeah, true.
So people got to ask the question: was it a good trade-off or not? Mm-hmm. And I don't think people want to answer that. Yeah, the head coach took it. He says, "My call." I called those particular defenses. He didn't call those defenses. He's doing what every good head coach should do. He's taking the blame because he's the leader of it all. But at the end of the day, he has to go back and ask, did he make the right decision in making that change? Because he didn't have to make it so public. He still could have left the other guy as the coordinator, but had Coach Patricia make some calls. He made that decision because Coach Patricia has Super Bowls behind him. He has defensive winning pedigree behind him. And so you build this up. And so everybody was thinking, here they come. They're going to stop Seattle every single time. And they didn't when it mattered most.
Yeah, the backup quarterback too. Yeah.
Let's put this questioning and blame where it should be. The head coach got to own it.
Yeah. So I can't wait, man. The playoffs are right around the corner in this NFL season. This is one of the more unpredictable NFL seasons in a while. The year of the backup quarterback. It's going to be a fun last couple weeks in playoffs.
It will be, but I will say this: the teams whose quarterbacks are still there. Miami Dolphins, the 49ers, the Baltimore Ravens. The guys have had their quarterbacks that's been there all year. In the end, I believe those will be the teams that's standing. I really do. Jared Goff at Detroit. I mean, I just, for some reason, those Josh Allen, those teams, those quarterbacks, they're got to make those plays, at those times. And so these backup quarterbacks, it's a little bit different in the playoffs. It's a whole different game. Just ask Josh Allen when he was young, like he couldn't play in those games, right? And so now he's a wily vet. He's been in them. He got to go make those plays now.
Two teams no one wants to face if they stay hot: the Bills and the Browns in the playoffs. And I want to see Browns-Ravens so bad. That's the matchup I want to see.
Well, you're gonna get it. I never forget the year in 2015 we played the Steelers 3 times.
Yeah.
We split 1-1, and then the third game was in Cincinnati. We thought we had it won, and we fumbled the ball going in. That the rest was history. But that can happen where they got to play them again. A third time playing a team is very tough. Oh, it's fun. It's fun for the fans. It's crazy for the coaches.
You got to get to a point where you're like, God, just die already. Go away. Like, I'm so sick of seeing y'all's face. Like, there's got to be so much like talking back and forth, like between the players. Oh, it's you again. God damn it. Like, we put you down last week. Like, shoot. Like,
you just said it. And it's so crazy because you end up playing a team like, say, week 15, and then week 17, you find out, oh, that's who we're playing.
Again.
So here comes a playoff, and you got to go play this game again. It's like, oh my gosh.
I remember one year like that. It was like Denver and Kansas City like that. They played each other like 3 times in like 5 or 6 weeks or something. And I was like, Jesus, like, got to mix it up a little bit. That's got to get so interesting.
But Well, we can't wait, and we appreciate you, coming back on again. We love having you on the show, and we'll try to get you on again soon. Best of luck wherever you're coaching at
Thank
going
you.
forward, and we really appreciate your insights, and always have fun having you on.
Absolutely. Thank both of you. And again, playoff football's around the corner. I'd love to talk some more playoff football with both of you.
Oh yeah, I mean, if the
Absolutely.
Browns are getting into the postseason, you're coming on. I'm gonna be
Okay.
you know,
They're
like,
getting in. They're going to get in for sure. I
oh, I know.
promise you
Well,
Yeah.
Alex
that.
kind of forbade me from saying Flacco is Backo again, but I'll just sneak it in once here at the end. He was like, "Please, no more." He keeps sending me that Michael Jordan gif of like, "No, stop it, don't stop." Like
Stop
Michael
it.
Jordan
Get
shaking
some
his head at
help.
me. Look,
Flacco is Flacco. Yeah, I like that.
see,
Yeah,
hey, Hugh
he
approves,
believes,
man. It is.
Yeah,
I'm gonna
that's
get that
pretty
on a shirt
cool.
for you.
Yeah, that's
Okay,
pretty
well,
cool.
message us your address. I'm gonna
Okay, you got
custom
it.
print one.
Well, we hope you guys enjoyed this episode. Don't forget to like, subscribe, leave a comment. Have a great week, guys. Thanks again, Hugh, and peace out, guys.
All right. Take care.